I've talked a lot about this on the air, and that's my thoughts also, that this is something and it's here to stay, and it's not changing. I think it will be more productive for the U.S., and we have the most productive workers in the world, and a lot of companies are moving their workforces to the United States, and they're hiring a lot of our workers because they're getting much more productivity.
Absolutely. We should encourage that kind of thing. The problem are the restrictions that we're imposing on the movement, not so much of people, but of goods.
And if we, that is also always negative, and that is just a short-term trend. I think it's more political, but in the long term, I really don't see those forces. They're sort of political swabs that the administration places, like we did on the steel tariffs, and they did not last, and they were a failure, as we know.
Well, go slowly for a moment. This nation is more than 2 centuries old, and in that 2 centuries, we have never been able to get rid of these protectionist measures. Alexander Hamilton, at the birth of the nation, wrote a famous report, economic report, in which he argued for tariffs on steel as for an infant industry. He said that steel was in its infancy and it needed protection for a few years. I don't think it was steel; it was iron,
right.
Iron ore at that time.
Right.
And he said, while in principle he favored free trade, in practice, and this is what every politician has always said, we have a domestic industry that needs help. And the result of that is to slow down economic growth and improvements in technology. And we're still, so I don't think you're right that time tends to promote, by itself, has tended to promote freer trade. On the contrary, we've maintained a protectionist policy throughout our history.
I think, again, Dr. Friedman, that would be an ideal world where we would have no total free trade globally. But again, we've seen in Europe, the EU has done this, has had tremendous amounts of subsidies, especially on their agriculture. We've had subsidies, as you mentioned, on agriculture. And then there's some other countries who want to protect some of the other parts of it. I guess what you're propagating is we have to actively work at this to bringing these barriers down, and those will be beneficial for the entire world if we're able to do so.
Well, it would be beneficial for us and helpful for the rest of the world if we would unilaterally, on our own, reduce these tariffs. We don't need we don't need cooperation from anybody else to eliminate the present quotas on sugar imports.
Right.
And there are many other, over and over again, where we can unilaterally reduce the barriers we impose.
Let's talk a little bit go back to interest rates. They're expected to go up, as you said. They're extraordinarily low right now. What do you think will be the impact on the stock market? And a number of analysts feel that with the election year and easy monetary policy, we could see a lot higher prices for the Dow, maybe 12,000 or even higher, making new all-time highs. What is your outlook as far as the market is concerned, or do you have one?
I have learned long ago that making predictions about the stock market is not a sensible thing to do. And I don't propose to get into that business.
I thought maybe I could slip that question in at the end and get your opinions, and I think that would be where the market would end up. You've been a part of numerous administrations in the past, and share with us what are your economic priorities if you were in the administration today? It's an election year. Will the Bush administration be able to keep the rates low and get the economic growth and keep the low employment? What would your priorities be if you were in the administration today? And
my priorities would be to spend less money. I think the big problem is not any of the things you've been mentioning. The big problem is a tendency for government to take over more and more to run our lives for us. We have become a nanny state. Here we now, the area which is most prominent there has been medical care.
Right.
Until World War II, we never spent more than about 3 to 5% of national income, of GNP, on medicine. We now spend 17%.
So we're spending way too much. What about a lot of people talk about national security and the military right now, and a lot of people are talking about a homeland security that we need to spend a
Yes,
lot more money on it.
we spend nearly 5 times as much on medical care as we did in, let's say, at the end of World War II, but we spend considerably less of our national income on defense than we did then.
So you would say that we should spend more on defense and cut back on some of the
No,
others?
we shouldn't spend more on defense, but we should introduce more free market arrangements into medical care. The reason we spend so much on medical care is not because we're getting more better health out of it. We spend as much as we do on medical care because we have converted it into a system in which almost all payments are by third parties. You don't go in and deal with a physician or a caretaker directly.
Mm-hmm.
The way you go into a store to buy your groceries directly. There's always a third party in there these days. It's either the government or it's an insurance representative.
The HMOs and all of the insurance companies.
Right, and nobody spends somebody else's money as carefully as he spends his own. And the result is that you have tremendous waste. The most hopeful sign there was the health savings accounts, which were included in the Medicare bill that passed recently. Those offer an opportunity for people to take charge of their own medical care and not to get it through their employers.
Dr. Friedman, I want to thank you for taking the time out and sharing your thoughts with us, and I appreciate you being on the air with us today again. It's my honor to have you. Thank you very much.